And here's the thing. Who is right? Yesterday, the theme of what we talked about was very much based on what we called the fog, the mixed messages, the misinformation, some even say the disinformation. Either way, a worryingly confused picture is emerging. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, enter Keir Starmer into the equation, who cobbles together a press conference and calls for a national lockdown. This demands an obvious question. Where was he on Monday in responding to the Prime Minister in Parliament on this very issue? There were no important statements on this. He made no mention of a national lockdown. Not a hint. Within 24 hours, though, he's gone from "we support the government" to wanting to close down the country. Keir Starmer clearly, and I think, I don't want to be too cynical, had a little early look at the Sage Committee's advice. Of course, the Sage Committee's advice is their version of events. It doesn't mean it's entirely taken into the conclusion in terms of where a government goes. It's part and parcel of it. So the Sage advice looks like this: 2-week full lockdown, stay-at-home orders, school closures from October the 24th. They say could reduce deaths for the rest of the year from about 19,900 down to 12,100. Wow. Hospital admissions could be reduced from 132,400 to 66,500, whereas the limited lockdown that we have kind of at the moment, with schools and shops open but hospitality venues closed, could cut deaths to 15,600. Do you believe these figures, first of all? We've been let down by scientists on more than one occasion of late. We've been down more statistical rabbit holes than I've had hot dinners. 0344 499 1000. But, as I said at the top, when you thought it couldn't get any worse, there is mass confusion over Keir Starmer's position on this. As one senior backbencher put it, you've got Starmer calling for a national lockdown, while Labour MPs are voting against restrictions in areas with high rates, and frontbenchers like Lucy Powell, the shadow business minister, saying pubs in her areas shouldn't shut down. Labour are all over the place on this. The Labour leader has suggested half-term to maximise the impact without closing schools. The government has not got a credible plan, he said, to slow infections. It's lost control of the virus and it's no longer following the scientific advice. Mr Johnson replied by saying that Labour was careering all over the shop like a shopping trolley with a broken wheel. Meanwhile, another Labour politician, Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London's talking about the capital being placed into Tier 2 with a ban on households mixing. Leaders in Greater Manchester, Labour again, dug in against being placed in Tier 3. What the heck do Labour stand for? Yesterday I mentioned, it's worth throwing this one in as well, the Special Envoy to the WHO, the World Health Organization, that's Dr. David Nabarro, who said that lockdown should only be used as a last resort because of the impact on the economic and social life of a country. He also said the effects of lockdown are that they make poor people even poorer. So who do we believe here? Keir Starmer, Lucy Powell, Sage, Andy Burnham, Boris Johnson, or the World Health Organization, or maybe my nan? I've got no idea who I'm supposed to believe on this. I told you it was a confusing picture. In a way, though, and this is the genius and the cruelty, if you like, of politics, Keir Starmer has played a blinder. If the Prime Minister does eventually go for a national lockdown, it will look like it was Keir Starmer's idea. If he doesn't, and cases rise, I'm talking cases here, not necessarily people who have coronavirus, if they go up, he can say, I told you so. You've got to love politics. 0344 499 1000. So we have more information, but I think we have more misinformation as well. We certainly have more confusion here. You're listening to Keir Starmer? Suddenly, out of nowhere, he's listened to Sage and said, we need the national lockdown. I said it yesterday, and there's not a serious person in the land that would disagree with this. Sage advice is absolutely crucial, of course. Scientists and clinicians getting together and explaining where they stand on this. But of course, it's only one. Firstly, it's a version of events. There are other scientists who would depart from what Sage say, but they are the official body, as it were. But it's part of a wider spectrum of advice that any government has to take into account. We're talking about the economic factor. We're talking about employment. We're talking about unemployment. We're talking about businesses. We're talking about people going under. We're talking about destitution. We're talking about poverty. We're talking about the effects of not being able to get your operation. We're talking about people on waiting lists that are 100 miles long as we speak, just trying to get basic treatment. It could be a cancer scan. It could be something that involves an operation. Procedures brought to a halt. So there's also that as well, Mr. Starmer. So you can cite SAGE, but they are only one part of the bigger picture. In terms of who you believe, well, Mr. Starmer, is he doing it for you? And by the way, I would genuinely like to hear from you. Genuinely like to hear from you. It'd be very easy to fill a switchboard here with people who think that Keir Starmer's gone stark raving mad. I'd like to fill a switchboard here also with people who think he's absolutely on the money. Am I missing something here? Am I missing something? Mr. Johnson didn't have a very good Prime Minister's question time because he failed to make the very points I've just made to Keir Starmer. What about all of the other factors in this? All of the known unknowns, as somebody on Capitol Hill once said. 0344 499 1000. So we have divisions within the Labour ranks. We know we've got divisions in the Tory ranks as well. We've got various mayors of various cities saying one thing. You've got the Labour leader saying something else. You've got some of his own front benchers saying something completely different. So who's right? Is it Boris? Is it Starmer? Is it Andy Burnham? Is it your front bench shadow business spokesperson Lucy Powell? Is it SAGE? I have no idea. 0344 499 1000.